I'll say obviously congratulations on the film first of all. Like when I heard all of the reactions coming out of South by, I was very, very excited. And then being able to see the film, I was like, this is very much up my alley. I had like a lot of fun with it. It brought me back to like the slashes of the 80s and the 90s. And
Nice.
but then it also like, subverted expectation a little bit because like
Mm.
the reveal behind the clown was a nice surprise. And like you've tackled obviously like comedy and horror before, like with this, I feel like fear and humor like so often provoke, like a visceral reaction. Like, do you approach them similarly when directing, or do they require like completely different muscles from you?
Um, I do believe that there is similar, like, there's a similar element of the human brain that deals with fear and laughter.
Mm.
And, it's sort of a surprise mixed with some subversion is
Yeah.
works for both the horror and then so I see them as being oddly similar. A lot of people are always like, well, especially in the studio system, and I hope this is changing a little bit, like with some great horror comedies that have come out lately, like Heart Eyes and Companion. I mean, there's been some good horror comedies coming out lately, but studios have always wanted like really genre specific stuff,
Mm.
and I feel blessed in a way. It's a bit more of a struggle to make these kind of movies, but I feel blessed that I've had the opportunity to occasionally when I get the green light to make a movie. But then the challenge is really to not lose the horror, especially on this film, is to not lose the suspense in the horror by being goofy or something, but letting
Mm.
the comedy kind of come out of the situation and feel like very much like it lives in that context of the world.
Yeah. No, no, yeah. Like it was one of those movies where it was, like we were, I guess, the characters were saying, humorous things and we were laughing because of what they were kind of saying and reacting to. But like the
Yeah.
situations are like it's horrific, like
Yes.
and
Yeah.
it made me sort of think, was there I guess a specific kill or a specific moment that made you go like, yes, this is the scene that'll make audiences scream or cheer?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I'd say this is the first film where I've totally given into like the act structure where you're gonna end with the biggest bang, right? You're gonna um with Tucker and Dale, I think I was so excited to just make a movie. I was like, I'm gonna go gangbusters with comedy the whole way through.
Mm.
And I'll have some really emotional moments. I wanted it to have a tender heart and then also like, have action elements. But if I was could critique my own work, I would say that like Tucker and Dale peaks in the second act, and it's as good as I could ever do for a film, but like right in the second act, and
Mm.
then it just kind of keeps cruising for fun for a while. And Little Evil, I really tried to make it peak in the third act, but I think I was not balancing. I like the movie. I love both these movies, but I was not maybe balancing the comedy with enough horror vibe.
Mm.
And so I've learned from those movies, and I'm like, I'm gonna be patient, and I'm gonna take my time to develop these characters, and I'm not gonna be too nervous if I'm not making people laugh all the time through the character development. But once I really get into it and I get into like my jam and my stuff, I'm gonna build, 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 build until the very end where I'm gonna wrap it up quick. And so that was
Yeah.
my goal on this.
Yeah, and no, because one of the things I love is like there's always humanity in like the absurdity of these films. Like, do you see horror comedy as like a way of making sense of like, life's contradictions, or is it more
I
like
see
an
I see
instinctual sort of
comedy as a sense of making sense of
yeah,
life.
yeah.
I think life is horror, and if humans didn't have comedy, this is why ChatGPT can't write a joke because humans have a sense of the absurd inside of us. And when things get too horrific, we have to laugh. And that to me is why this is the perfect movie for right now because we live in a really dark, horrific time
Mm.
and it feels out of our control. It feels out of my control. I wish I had more control. I just don't. So it feels like you're inside of a horror movie just trying to survive. But the only thing, the thing we have to do is remember our humanity and remember how to laugh
Hmm.
because that gets us through. And so I really do. I think this movie is a metaphor for America in a lot of ways. But this is also a metaphor for just surviving horror because the best way to do it is to keep a sense of humor.
Mm. Well, I was gonna ask, like the film had it's like there's generational divide, there's like small town values. Like, do you like what do you think it is about horror that I guess it feels like it's the best genre to sneak in social commentary? Like, do you
Right.
feel like there's a special source to that at all?
Well, I think it is because it's about sneaking it in,
Yeah.
right? And it's just about layers of the onion. And if somebody cares to dissect it to its deepest part, there's a lot there. But you don't have to.
Mm,
And maybe you don't even you're not in the mental place to yet in your life.
mm,
And that's fine. I think the best art has a lot to say that maybe even the artist doesn't know it's saying.
mm.
And so I think that, I also think of things like Dostoevsky and Sartre and stuff, but especially like the Russian authors that had to hide their stories from the censors, and they had to be smart enough that the censors wouldn't know that they were actually criticizing the powers that be inside their work because they couldn't dissect that deep into the layer of the onion. They would just see the outside. So I think to me, there's always something I try to, hide within my movie. But it's not a message at all. It's just these themes that I think our culture is dealing with right now.
Yeah.
While I say it's American, I mean it's really worldwide. I think it works all over the world, but I am definitely satirizing a part of America.
Yeah.
Um, and even the title for me satirizes it because cornfields are America.
Yeah.
Like that's an American crop. And if you drive through the Midwest, it's corn as far as the eye could see. But it was also a very hopeful crop in the 30s and 40s, and farmers, coming out of the Great Depression. But the 40s, they started making corn syrup, and it was this sugary sweet substance that was also supposed to be good for you.
Mm.
And there's just something so metaphorically wonderful about this like forward-looking, optimistic America that thought corn syrup was good for you, and now your teeth are rotted and you have diabetes. And America is decaying in front of our eyes, and the American dream is on life support. So, that's and because we have clowns running everywhere, a clown. We have a clown running around causing a lot of problems in the cornfield. There you
Yeah.
go.
I mean, like gives a whole new level to everything that happens on screen. But talking about like the censor side of things, and it made me sort of think of I remember like when Wes Craven was making Scream, and he was like he lied basically to the censors, saying like, "Oh, the shot of Drew Barrymore getting stabbed was like it's the only time we filmed it. We can't possibly edit it." And it made me think like was there ever a moment where you went, "Oh, we've gone too far with like the kills or the blood or the gore or anything"? Like, were you ever like, or we should tiptoe around things, or were you
Um,
sort of given free reign, so to speak?
Well, unfortunately, this was an independent film and I didn't have a
Yeah.
studio leaning over me and giving me notes about that stuff. I would say the producers never asked me to tone down my cut of it.
Mm,
Um, I will say that I am not a gore hound.
yeah.
If I watch, like Art the Clown lives in his own gore level to me, and
Yeah.
I will watch it as a student, and I admire what Damien does, like prosthetically, and I
Mm,
admire just his in-camera work and the physical, the special effects. Totally admirer of it, but it's not my jam. Like
mm,
I have kind of a repulsion to gore, and so when I'm also kind of grossed out when I'm doing it in my film, and that's where I try to find my balance. I want to get myself right to that level of like, oh
yeah.
God, I can't look and then kind of give the audience a break
Yeah.
because I don't want to dwell in it.
Yeah. No, I mean there were moments that I was like, yeah, it was gory enough without, you know, excessive, blood spurts and that sort of stuff. It was like we'll do the kill, we'll do the gore, and then we'll move on to the next one. And with
Yeah.
like with working in the genre, like has your like has your relationship with like fear changed as a storyteller over the years at all? Because you know, a lot of people, clowns are already off limits for a lot of people, but like, yeah, has it
Oh
changed
yeah.
anything for you?
Yeah, I can watch a lot more horror movies now that I wouldn't be able to watch before. And because I begin to go into like, ooh, how are they doing that?
Mm.
How did they do that? My brain just goes to seeing what's going on behind the camera, all the physical effects. And so I can kind of disassociate and I don't have to like experience what that character is experiencing. But I was terrified. I mean, I was terrified of horror as a kid, and I think it affected me um very deeply. And those are moments that I remember seeing. Like I saw The Exorcist, I think, when I was like 7 or 8 or something, and I couldn't believe it when Reagan is freaking out on the on and spinning her head around and using foul language, all these amazing things. And um, that, and uh, there were some other movies that just destroyed me, but those visuals stay with you kind of for life,
Mm.
and that's the part about horror that I also love because it imprints a little bit in your brain, and so that's why to me I want to do that, but I also make like hopeful films. Like I have like hopeful horror
Mm.
because uh, I like I like someone surviving and going through all the awful, terrible things they go through. It kind of makes them a stronger person, which is what I believe about struggle in general. So
Mm. I mean, yeah, it was great to sort of see with the film. Like there were certain characters that I was sort of convinced were going to be either like the first to go or die early, and they made it quite far. There were other survivors that I was not expecting. I'm like, as a gay man, I love that there was that part of it as
yeah,
well. Like that
yeah,
was just a really nice thing to have into it. Yeah, and like we're seeing horror just completely thrive, but it's so awesome to see a film like this that you know lives within a genre we kind of think we know where it's going to go, and it completely
yeah.
takes us by surprise. So I'm just so grateful that we have big screen horror still out there in the world, and yeah, I'm just excited for everyone to see this. So thank you so much for
Awesome.
taking the time and
Before
for
you wrap up, I'll give you one other thing because
yeah.
my brother, my youngest brother, he's very openly out, very openly gay. And I think that, to be honest with you, I think sort of the best um, versions of movies for like gay rights were like the ones that were not seen as trying to make a point, but like
Mm,
the Will and Grace kind of thing, where you fall in love with these characters, or you just, you know, those kind of things broke through. And I feel like things that are just so there to make a message or make a point of it kind of don't break through to people. And it's
mm,
good for people that are not going to see an LGBTQ movie at all to just have gay characters that 'cause gay characters are in the world, man. They're every,
yep, yep.
so let's embrace everybody's sexuality and um not just make it have to be the theme of the movie. It's just
Uh,
an element of it.
yeah, and I think the fact that it was just they were both like quote unquote masculine characters as well. Like they weren't like it
Yeah.
wasn't pandering to anything. Like yeah, it's like I feel like we're seeing queer characters and gay characters just like they're being treated in media a lot differently now, which is really great to see that we're no longer just like the punchline or the sassy sidekick or like that's like it's not
Yeah,
checking off
well
boxes. Yeah, yeah,
that's the opposite of Will and Grace too. So maybe
yeah.
Will and Grace wasn't the best, but yeah. Anyway.
Will and Grace like did things as much as it embraced things that it went against at the same time. But no, like
Yeah,
yeah, as I
yeah,
said, like I love horror movies so much, and this was just the biggest joy to watch on the big screen, and I just want to watch it again with like a massive crowd because I know that yeah, it's the kind of movie that needs that. So thank you so much.
yes. Thank you. Thank you so much, Peter.